Whew. Welcome back, everyone. I told you it'd be a late one tonight. So yeah, we saw the late showing of the movie Wicked. It premiered tonight in Mexico, and I know some theaters in the United States are having early premieres as well. So there's probably a bunch of reviews out there already, but I figured, um, I promised I'd go live, so I go live. So let's sort of get the elephant, or there's actually a couple elephants in the room. Let's get those out of the way. Yeah, I'm not the typical audience that probably Wicked is shooting for, and that's okay. That's life, I've never I've never read the book. I've never seen the musical, so I won't be able to compare it to the others. So I'm going in there fresh to see a movie and a musical that is new to me. Everything's new to me, so I'm sure there'll be comparisons either way, but for me, I always find those unfair anyways, because you can't go from a musical to a film and not lose something or add something or gain something. Either way, bottom line, this is a very, very enjoyable movie. I don't care who you are. It's a very, very enjoyable movie. Yes, it is a musical. It is 85% music and dancing right off the bat. You've got to know that going in. It's almost 3 hours long. It didn't feel like 3 hours long. It kept a really good pace. Much like I said about Gladiator 2, it kept a really good pace going through the entire film. Never once was I like, oh man, I got to get a break, or man, I'm going to stand up, man, I got to do something, or I feel tired. No, it was, like I said, it was the late showing. The theater was packed, sold out. When I say sold out, I mean there wasn't a seat left. People were being turned away. So is this movie going to do well? It is in this country, and I'm pretty sure it's going to do fairly well in the United States and around the world. From what I understand and what I've read, there's a huge following for the musical. I know, as I said before, when the book came out, I worked in a bookstore as part of, what I was doing, for work when I was working my way through college. A hugely popular book. So I expect this movie to end up box office wise. I would think it would really surprise me if this didn't end up in the top 5 of the year. Some of my thoughts when I saw all the people waiting, all the people getting turned away, all the people asking for tickets for the next day that were sold out, and the next day that were sold out. My thoughts were that this could make a run at Deadpool and Inside Out, or Inside Out 2, which are the two movies that made the most. One, I think Deadpool's at 1.4 billion, and Inside Out 2 is around 1.6, 1.7. It might have gone up to 1.8 at this point in time. I know the theatrical runs for those have stopped, but I expect this movie to do that kind of business. It's that kind of event movie. You kind of feel it in the merchandising. You feel it that it's getting a lot of attention online, a lot of positive attention online, even from sources, like I said, that I don't normally see a lot of positive reviews coming out of, because it's the demographic. Again, you're looking at me. I'm middle-aged white guy. You're probably thinking not the core audience, but I thoroughly enjoyed this film. And I think people who sit down, give it a chance, and say, okay, yeah, sure. And by the way, I think I was very critical the other day about the messaging being put out about the film, the political messaging, the social messaging, which I said I don't think is fair, because it takes away the idea of the audience sitting and enjoying it for what it is. And if you go into that, yes, it's got social messaging, it's got political messaging. What doesn't? It's not heavy-handed like some reviewers maybe thought it would be, or some people thought it would be before they even saw the film. It's there. You move past it. It's the reality. It's life. It's a viewpoint. It's a perspective. Whatever. It does not engulf or envelop the entire film. It's purposeful when it needs to be. And really, when you see this kind of film, it's a spectacle. It's big. It's epic. It's, I said Gladiator 2 was epic and big, and I really do believe and stand by that opinion. But this one outdoes it in far as scale goes. When you look at the set designs and things, now a lot of what they did for Wicked was by hand. They actually built the sets. They built the houses, the Munchkins and all that, or Munchkin Land. The train you see, there's so much that's hand built, handmade, the costumes, everything. That production is probably the most in-depth and most well-resourced production you're going to see this year. Before we even get to what the the acting or the directing or anything like that, or the music. The visual of that film is, it's nothing tops it really this year. I think it's come close. I was going over this with my wife as we were coming home, talking about previous movies, and I said, well, Furiosa had great set pieces, great visuals. Whether you like the film or not, it had great visuals. All right, let's give flowers where flowers do. I liked the film. I know a lot of people didn't. I thought Gladiator 2 had great visuals, great set pieces. There's a lot, like I said, there's a lot of films out there that put a lot of effort into that type of stuff. This one outdoes them. It just purely outdoes them, both in scale, in attention to detail, in grandiosity, as in like, some of the costumes are so, they don't look functional, but they are in some way, but they fit and they're odd and they're out of place and they're in place at the same time. It's just, especially when you go to places like the Emerald City and you see what they tried to do there with the costumings in and out of the different areas of the Emerald City. It must have taken months and months and months of a lot of different laborers doing that work to get, or seamstresses or seamsters, doing that work to get that kind of level of detail and that kind of variety of costume and make it look as good as it looked on screen. And everything really did look well on screen. We'll get into the plot in a second. I'm going to keep it spoiler free. But the first thing you have to say about this film is it really does outdo everything on sheer scale in terms of a visual experience. So pardon me, I'm going to take a little drink of water here. The other thing about Wicked is, again, I'm not the type of person, I like musicals, don't get me wrong, Wonka, I even like Joker 2, but like the old musicals, Singing in the Rain, the original West Side Story, things like that, I've always enjoyed those type of movies. Always found a great appreciation for the art and the choreography that goes into it. It's no different here in Wicked. They really try to capture a lot of that old school, really big dance numbers, musical numbers, a lot going on, a lot of choreography, a lot to keep you busy on screen. And it really did remind me of those older school 50s and 60s musicals, which I thought was great. And that's the overall, when you first start the movie, the overall tone of the movie really pays homage to the original Wizard of Oz with the way they do the credits or the opening title sequences and things like that. It really, really does pay homage to that. By the way, people were upset that it's getting spoiled, that this is part one. We always knew this is part one. And by the way, the title in the beginning, within the first 3 minutes, says Wicked Part 1. So, there's a part 2 coming at some point in time. That's public knowledge. That's not like a spoiler. So if that upsets you, get over it. This is just part 1. And like I said, it's about 2 hours. And I want to say it clocks in at 2 hours and 43 or 44 minutes long. You don't feel it at all. So let's get to the meat and potatoes of it all. I couldn't name an Ariana Grande song if you put a gun to my head right now. I don't know. It's not my generation, right? I know she's really talented. I guess I've seen some skits of her on Saturday Night Live where she does really well with the comedy. And here, she was extremely impressive. Not that there's a bad performance within the film, acting-wise. It's just, she blows everybody away. It's really surprising. She's hilarious. She plays this character, Galinda, who becomes Glinda. Again, not a spoiler. We all know this. And she plays, it's a very narcissistic, very self-involved, very selfish character. Me, 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 me. Really unaware of how her behavior affects other people in negative ways. But it's hilarious how she pulls it off. It's very over the top. A lot of her movements are very over the top when she's just acting, never mind the singing. But she's funny and it's hilarious. She has moments of tenderness and heart and, tears and all that. But that's not what you remember when you leave the theater. You remember that she's absolutely hilarious. She's a comedian. She has great timing in this film with her facial expressions, her one-liners, the way she delivers those one-liners. It's just, it's the whole package. And is it Oscar worthy? It's one of those performances where it's like that performance is what carries the entire movie, even though every other performance is really good. I don't mean that to sound like I'm denigrating anyone else, because we're going to get in a couple of the other performances, which I really enjoyed. But my wife and I, we both looked at each other and other people as we walked out of theaters. That was it. She killed it. She owned that. She owned that movie. Every scene she was in, even when she didn't have a line, when somebody else was speaking, you were waiting to see what expression she was going to have on her face as a reaction to the line other people were speaking. Again, so well done. Now, could that be a thing of the director? Was the director giving that type of direction to her? It could be. It could be a combination of both, but you have to give credit where credit is due. She's the one who had to perform it on screen, and she killed it. She made it thoroughly, thoroughly enjoyable. And yes, I can see her getting some sort of nomination for some sort of award down the road, whether it's a Golden Globe or whatnot, or not. Or some people even said Academy Award. She carries the movie that well. It's like when you watch Oppenheimer. I mean, Cillian Murphy carried that movie because of his performance, right? You watch certain movies that the character, the actor, regardless of what else is going on, who else is in the film, they carry, and that's why they get on, because they're the memorable. And she is the memorable character in this film. She is so entertaining. So again, I couldn't name a song by her to save my life, but damn, she can act, and she can be funny, and she can be entertaining. Well, there you go. So the Ariana Grande fans out there, which I assume there's tons of, okay? Sorry, I grew up in the times of Britney Spears, so that was my Ariana Grande. So to the Ariana Grande fans out there that are wondering if her performance is really good, it's really freaking good. I mean, really freaking good. Her partner in crime in this film is Cynthia Erivo, and I didn't know her from anything. I didn't know her from any. I can't even. Again, she's someone to me who's unknown, and I watch movies. I watch 4 or 5 movies a week, and I don't know who she is as an actress. I do now. She did the role the way she needed to do the role, in which she was competent. She was good. She delivered the performance. She made you feel empathy. She made you feel sadness. She made you feel anger when you needed to feel it. She very much got the emotion out of the audience or out of you that you need to be or need to feel in the moment to be with her in that, because she's the main character, right? Elphaba. She's the main character. She's the one you're on this journey with. It's kind of funny because I said something to my one of the people I was seeing a film with today. Is ever since the first Joker came out, I've always been curious about the narrator of the film, right? We always know when we see the first Joker film, we know he's a narrator, he's the one telling the story, he's an unreliable narrator. Well, in this one, Ariana Grande's character is the one narrating. She's the one who's sort of telling a story. That's how it's set up. At least that's how I read into it. You could tell me if I'm wrong. So it's always curious. Are you getting the full story from Glinda? You know, it's always these thoughts that roll through my head. Is there another version of events out there that might have happened? Because it's an intriguing story. We all grew up with the Wizard of Oz. I grew up with the Wizard of Oz. I mean, this is before cable. This is before, in the very, very early days of cable. Wasn't any streaming or computers. So every year around Thanksgiving, it was an event. Wizard of Oz was going to be on TV, network TV. Yeah, there's going to be commercials. But it was the Wizard of Oz, and you sat down as a kid. It was an event, a family event. You watched the Wizard of Oz, and it was just something you look forward to in the holidays. So it was really cool to see this different take that I've never seen or never read on the Wizard of Oz, because there's always a different perspective out there and a different way the story is. So Cynthia Erivo, her singing was great. Let me just say, you know, the music, not my cup of tea. I'm more of a Wonka musical, that kind of music, kind of a little quirky, a little bit more. This is a little bit more operatic, a little bit more Broadway. I get that. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just, it's not my cup of tea, but I can see, damn, like some of those notes, I was wondering if it was going to shatter my glass. The way they were reaching some of those high notes. Fabulous, fabulous singing. Even from the people who I'm like, okay, I didn't know. Peter Dinklage voices the goat, the teacher, Mr. Dollarman. I can't remember the goat's name at this point. He attempts to sing at some point in time, can't sing. Well, he can sing better than I can, so I shouldn't really say that. But even the people who aren't singers, they manage to pull off a tune, and it works. It just works. It works. The music works. There's a lot of it. Me personally, maybe shave about 20 minutes off of it, like shaving some of the music, maybe. I don't know. Maybe that's defeating the purpose. Maybe that's sacrilege when talking about a musical as popular as Wicked. But if there was a critique I had of the film, it would be like, okay, there was a lot of music. Give me a little bit more exposition, a little bit more back and forth acting. I get it. Again, it's just me. It doesn't, for anybody out there who's going to really like this for the music, there you go. You're going to have plenty of it to listen to. But the ending, the last song, I think it was Defy Gravity, was probably the best song. Or there was one other, and I don't know the name of it because I didn't bother to look up all the names of the songs because, again, I've never seen the musical. But there was one where they are, where it's between Elphaba and Glinda, and they're doing sort of like a scene in the room where Glinda's just sort of telling Elphaba how to be pretty and how to be popular. That was a really good song. That was a really kind of pick-me-up song. That was a funny song. It was a good song. It was a joyful song. It was very entertaining. It really, for halfway through the film, of a long film, it was a great placement for that song. It's sort of like, if you're feeling a little like, okay, this is an hour and a half, that juiced you up. And again, I give it all to Ariana Grande. By the way, if you hear somebody sighing in the background, that's not my family. That's my dog. Well, I guess it's my family. He's snoring in the background. So pardon Caesar for snoring. He's an old man. Anyways, back to Wicked. So great performance, but again, and great chemistry. Like I said, great chemistry between Ariana and Cynthia. You would think that these two have known each other their whole life, the way in which they're able to play off of each other, interact with each other. You see and because you see this in other films where you can tell, like, oh, those two people aren't very comfortable with each other on screen. You can feel it, right? It feels like, it doesn't feel good. It feels awkward. These two feel like they've grown up together, like they are so comfortable with each other and are willing to give to each other the time to develop, say a line, not step on each other. It just seems so, they seem so generous to each other. They seem so charitable to each other. And they seemed so appreciative of each other's performance when you see it. There's even a couple of moments where Ariana does a couple of things or says a couple of things or moves a certain way. And you can see Cynthia as Elphaba kind of give a little smirk. And I'm like, she's breaking character because Ariana is making her smile because she's enjoying watching that performance. And you get the same feeling from Ariana during a couple of scenes that what Cynthia's doing is making her smile almost. And I think they left it in there just because it just felt so natural and authentic between the two. And that's the heart of the film. And when you've got that, you've got a great film. It can be 3 hours long. It can be a musical. But if you've got that solid character relationship that people can buy into and go, okay, I'm invested, you got yourself a movie. And that's what we had. We had ourselves a movie. It was a great journey. So, yes, we all know that Elphaba is the Wicked Witch of the West, or she becomes the Wicked Witch of the West. We all know that Glinda, or Galinda, will become Glinda, the Good Witch of the North. North, South, North. Am I getting my directions mixed up? Anyways, you know what I'm talking about. So we all know that. And this is, we always ask each other, what's your favorite scene in the film? And I go back to the very opening. The way they attach it to the original Oz and the original story. And I'm sorry if this might be a spoiler. I'm sorry if you don't know this already. At the end of The Wizard of Oz, the original film, the Wicked Witch of the West has water thrown on her and she melts. I'm melting. So if that's a spoiler to you, sorry. Movie's been out since the 1930s. But they start out with that, the aftermath of that, which, again, I don't know if that's from the book. I don't know if that's from the musical, but immediately, boom, I was hooked. I'm like, oh, this is a great way to start the aftermath. Because, from The Wizard of Oz, all you see is, Dorothy and her gang bringing the broomstick to the wizard and laying it down. And there you don't see the chaos or any of the aftermath or the way the rest of the Land of Oz might sort of react to that kind of news or that kind of event. And that really, again, brilliant to just, that for someone like me, again, I think that scene is so important for someone like me who doesn't know the musical, doesn't know the book, is only a fan of the original books by Frank L. Baum and the original movie. Oh, also Return to Oz. By the way, if you have never seen Return to Oz, I think it's on Disney Plus. Very underrated sequel to The Wizard of Oz. You should see it. And the Deadly Desert's in there too. The Impassable Desert, what do you want to call it? So, so that seems very helpful to someone like me who's only really kind of got that legacy media with the Land of Oz. It really just hooked me, drew me in, and I was like, all right, this is cool. I wasn't expecting it to be so adult at the beginning. I guess that's the word. I just with the extramarital affair stuff and the drinking and all that, and that was like, oh, okay, all right, we're going with that kind of story. Okay, cool. I could appreciate it. I was like, all right, well, and again, because you go into some of these movies and you think, oh, this is a kiddie movie. It's not a kiddie movie. It can be a kiddie movie. I don't know, depends on how old your kids are. But I felt they did a great job crafting a film that spoke to all generations. And again, including curmudgeon old white guys on YouTube. So really, again, really great performance by those two. And the character arc that Cynthia, that Elphaba goes through it's slow burned, which is great. It's not rushed. I think that's a mistake a lot of films make. They rush through that hero's journey and they're like, why don't you have any empathy, or why don't you feel connected to our hero or our heroine? Because you rushed it. You rushed it. Here, they don't rush it. Again, like I said, it's a lengthy movie, but they could have rushed it. They could have cut this. They could have cut that. They could have just rushed right through it, and they didn't. They really developed, and again, a hero is only as good as its villain. And for the beginning, or for the first part of the film, or for most of the film, the villain is Ariana Grande. She's the bad person. She represents everything that Elphaba has to battle in society, whether it's perceptions, labeling, categorization, prejudice, whatever it might be. Whatever it is that she has to suffer through because of her circumstances in life, because of the manner in which she was born, the color of her skin, that's a big deal, okay? A lot of it either filters through or from Ariana's character. In a comedic way a lot of the times, and a lot of the ways it's like, oh, okay, she's a mean person, all right? So your hero's only as good as your villain. And since your villain is so good in Ariana, in how she plays this character, it really elevates the idea of the heroine that Elphaba is. And so, again, that relationship does more to make the film successful than just two great performances being entertaining. It really elevates the narrative in that way. That is until you get to Jeff Goldblum. Jeff Goldblum, who is, he's awesome. I mean, he's awesome. I love Jeff Goldblum, have since I think the first thing I saw him in was The Fly, that I can remember. He's done a bunch of different films, odd characters here and there. He's a great actor. He really is. And he has fun on screen. He's quirky. That term's thrown around so often. I think sometimes it loses meaning. He is quirky. If there's a definition of quirky, it's Jeff Goldblum. He plays, of course, the Wizard of Oz. And Cynthia's character, Elphaba, goes through an arc. She goes through her hero's arc, and you think, oh, that's one hell of a development for that character. That's one hell of a hero's arc. You're like, oh, wait a minute. That's not the hero's arc. Because Glinda is not the real villain. Because a villain, you could say, well, the villain is society. No, a villain for a story for humans to consume needs to be personified, by something. At first, it's personified by Glinda, but again, it's not the true villain. Boom. Enter Jeff Goldblum, and he brings a darkness to the film, a dark turn. It's that you think you're at a high point with Elphaba, and you think she's really reached this point of success. And for someone like me who does not know, because I don't, again, I'll repeat again, I did not read the book. I did not see the musical on Broadway. You think, wow, she's really reached a high point. I wonder where this is going to go, And of course, boom, it just goes down and you're in a deeper, darker hole than you were an hour before in the film. And you're like, oh, Jeff Goldblum, that's the real bad guy. He's the villain. And again, your hero's only as good as your villain. Now you've replaced a magnificent, excellent villain in Ariana Grande, or antagonist. Let's say antagonist. I shouldn't call her a villain. She's too funny to be a villain. She's too entertaining and funny. Makes you laugh to be a villain. You shouldn't laugh at a villain that much, right? So the antagonist, that role gets shifted over to Jeff Goldblum, and he picks up on it and goes in a totally different direction and forces Elphaba to go in a totally different direction, to be survival mode, to do what she thinks is right, to stand up for what she believes in. It creates a whole new heroine, a whole new dynamic to that character. And again, that last sequence in the film, again, no spoilers, is one that'll get you juiced up. I don't care who you are. I was like, all right, that was well done. There's energy right there. You're just like, and then when it goes to be continued, you're like, I'm ready to watch another 3-hour movie right now. I want to know what's going on. I want to know where this is going. I want to know what she's doing. I can't wait to see it. All right. Now, does that mean the movie's perfect? No. The movie's not perfect. Okay. The movie is not perfect. Again, I go back to what makes the movie not perfect. The press that comes out about it by the people who are the actors, the actresses, the production team. Again, I dislike very much, unless it's critical to the narrative of the film, and I don't think it's critical to the narrative of this film, to pigeonhole the film in a societal message. One small societal message, because acceptance can be in a lot of different realms, right? Acceptance can be anywhere. You can struggle with acceptance for all sorts of different reasons. But to say it's just because of a identity that's a pigeonhole, it really, again, I think it shrinks the meaning and impact your film could really have. Because if you go in there with that preconceived notion and you think this is a film about this specific identity and not talking about the grander, greater picture here, or letting the film talk about the greater, grander picture here, you do a disservice not only to yourself because you have such a platform to be able to say something, but you do a disservice to the people who are coming and maybe need that uplifting message. I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that aren't in that one category of identity that could use the same kind of powerful, uplifting message, and I hope they get it out of it. Hope they get out of this film that uplifting message, that they don't feel pigeonholed. But again, that's I just don't like it when that agency is taken away from the audience. All right. On the flip side of that, I'll go back to something positive. And as someone who's on the more conservative side, it's funny because you always get told that the other side, the liberal side, is the more compassionate ones, the more tolerant ones. Well, here you got a movie full of characters who would be labeled liberal because of how they identify, right? But yet they are the intolerant ones. And I think the message of the film is, at least that I get out of it, is it's not about it's not about how you identify. It's a jerk is a jerk. It doesn't matter. You could be whatever your skin color is. If you're a jerk, you're a jerk. Whatever your gender is, if you're a jerk, you're a jerk. And I really appreciated that. I'm like, I get behind that. Doesn't matter. Like, if you're a jerk, it really, that's where it begins and ends. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter where you come from or what your name is or how you identify. I really appreciated that message coming from this film. I thought that's something that is universal. And I think if anybody complains about that, I'm going to like, okay, you're being disingenuous at that point. Right. I think it's more of a unifying message than I ever thought I would get out of a film like this. But yeah, it felt good. There's like, and I don't remember his name again. I just saw the film probably half an hour ago. I don't watch Saturday Night Live very often. I know he's a gentleman. He's on it. He's in this film. Small part, very, very small bit part, but he's funny. He's funny. What I've seen from him on Saturday Night Live is funny. What I've seen on what he does in this film, he's got a couple little small parts in it that are funny. All right, back to some critiques. Here we go. The love story. Fiery, whatever the guy's name is, Prince Valiant, whatever, the Prince character, the alpha male. Didn't really go nowhere. Maybe it will in the second film. It doesn't add that much to it. As you hear Caesar licking something. What are you eating over there, boy? Caesar, stop. Thank you. All right. I don't know what you're chewing on. Anyways, it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't really it didn't add too much to me. It was entertaining, added some laughs. The only reason it added some laughs is because of what Ariana did with it. That's why it added laughs. Guy doesn't do a bad job singing, dancing, or acting. It just seems like unnecessary. I think the relationship and the conflict that they already have between the two of them, Glinda and Elphaba, I think is so much enough to catapult and vault this story forward and really keep its momentum, that it's sort of like it's an unneeded addition. Again, you don't have to cut it if you don't want to, but at the end, I didn't get as much out of it as maybe some people. And maybe there's more to come that I am unaware of, and it's just setting me up. Granted, let me know in the comment section what that is. But that was one thing. And yeah, everything. I don't really have any other critiques. It felt at times, and I got corrected on this a couple times as we were discussing the film afterwards on the ride home. At times I felt emotionally disconnected from it because, I couldn't relate to the emotions that were being, I'll give you the example. Here's the example. Elphaba, when she first meets Fury, I'll just call him the prince because I don't know what is, I can't remember his name. Plus the subtitles were in Spanish, so if I try to pronounce that, who knows? He almost runs her over with a horse. And she's very dismissive and defensive and kind of rude to him. But then 10 minutes later, she's like, oh, I wish I was the right girl. I'm the wrong girl. I'm like, to me, I'm going, well, you shouldn't have forebeat him at the beginning, And, my wife, as usual, corrected me and says, no, people sometimes have trauma. She's dealing off of her trauma, and her defensive is part of her trauma. I'm like, okay. She deserves a second chance. I'm like, okay. All right. Still don't agree with it, but my wife is always right. So, anyways, yeah, I don't know. It's on video now. So it was those things. There are little pieces where I just, it didn't hit me emotionally or didn't connect with me emotionally. Kind of like, I had to get back into it. Just a couple here and there. I loved how they made fun of virtue signalers. Again, I feel like I feel like a conservative consulted on this movie. There's a point where Galinda does something which is in support of a cause, is in support of a social cause, a social movement, an injustice that needs to be righted. And she makes this gesture, which is more about her than the cause. And I love how they make fun of like how the world is, the world is filled with people who do things to say, I'm supporting a cause. It's just a virtue signal. And they're making it more about them and how important they are because they're supporting a cause instead of actually doing something that actually means something to that injustice. So I thought that was fun, the way they were sort of mocking that or using that as an example of how to, just a comedic example. So I thought that was cool. I know I'm supposed to be critiquing the film, and there really isn't much. There isn't. There really isn't much. I just thought everything was so well done. It's one of the most well done films. All right. Is it a top 3 for me this year? I don't know. It's really well done. I got a couple more films to go. People are probably asking, well, what's your top 3? Obviously, I'm a Deadpool and Wolverine fan. That movie meant a lot to me. As a comic book fan, a pop culture fan, that movie I thought was just absolutely incredible. So I don't know if this makes a top 3. Gladiator 2, I was so enthralled with. I thought it was so good. And Denzel Washington's performance was so good. So I don't know. I really gonna have to sit on this because it's so hard. You're prisoner of the moment. And you want to put it up there because you think this is gonna run away with the box office. This is gonna. Red 1 is dead. I liked Red 1. I like The Rock. I like Red 1. I know a lot of people disagree with me. It's a Christmas movie. I like Christmas movies. Okay. That movie's done. Sorry. It's going to get crushed by Gladiator and Wicked at the same time. It's just, that's what's going to happen. So that movie's, it doesn't have a chance to make up its $250 million budget. This movie is, I expect Wicked to probably come out in November and into December. Just on what I've seen visually and what I've seen and just seen the excitement around it, I expect it to come out big. I expect it to come out the winter of November or December. Hopefully followed by Gladiator 2 because I think it's a good movie. Wicked might have that kind of legs like Venom. Venom's had incredible legs year round or for the last few months. Wicked might have legs because it's got such a big following that it might end up stepping on other new releases later on in December, like the Mufasa, the Lion King prequel, or Craven, the next Sony Spider-Verse movie. Those might just get stepped on. Those might just get trampled, depending on how. Again, I think this movie's going to have really good legs. But yeah, that is my review. Please go see Wicked if you're looking for a good time. It's a good time. It's fun. It's a fun movie. It's a lot of music. It's a lot of dancing. It's a lot of singing. It's the Wizard of Oz. That's what it is. It's an extension of the Wizard of Oz. And I think most of us can relate to that. That grew up with that film and can be happy about that. So if you've never seen Wicked on Broadway, if you've never read the book, it's okay. You will enjoy this movie because that was the litmus test for me. The first litmus test for me is like, I didn't see either one of those. Read either. Will I enjoy this movie? And I did. And I think you will too. So really, really well done. So I know there's a lot of people out there that probably already had some pre-hate for this movie. It's YouTube. What do you want? It's YouTube. They're not going to have many videos to make because I don't see how if they critique it, then it's really, like I said, disingenuous. It's not authentic. This is a really good movie. It might be, some people might put it as the best movie of the year. I understand that. I can see why some people would say that. I'm not there yet. I don't know if I'm going to get there yet, but it's definitely, like I said, it's definitely going to rule the holiday box office. I have no doubt about that. It's going to rule the holiday box office. So with that, I am still your reluctant gringo. I will be again live tomorrow night or tonight, probably tonight. Oh, okay. Yeah. Tonight, probably around 10:30 is what I'm shooting for. And we'll talk about a lot of other stuff in pop culture and politics, but I am still your reluctant gringo from somewhere south of the border. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please like, subscribe, comment, and share. But other than that, salud, and a huevo, and buenas noches. Let's get on out of here.